What's up, GY6 nerds? In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to install that big bore kit, performance cam, and performance head. In the first episode, link in the description if you missed it, we showed you how to tear that sucker down to get it ready to install that big bore kit. I'm going to show you step by step how to do this, including the specifications. This all has to do with the GY6 engine, also known as the QMJ157. Now that's the engine that's found in Honda Ruckus GY6 swaps, Mad Dogs, Taos, a bunch of Chinese scooters, little buggies, ATVs, little GY6 motorcycles. So if you have that stamp, QMJ157, on the side of your engine, this video will apply. I'm going to link all the parts that I use down in the description here. Now, this whole build series was based on a live that I did. So I've cut it down and I've made it into like more of a series. If you're into these type of videos, make sure you hit the little blue bell and the subscribe button so you can get notified when we go live every Friday. If you want to become a member and get this full live raw feed, you know, not the edited version, make sure you hit the little link down in the description to become a member. Let's do this. I'm going to take the old piston, the 150, and show you on the 171 the difference. There it is. There's the difference. 20% larger. This is as large as you can go without having to bore the engine cases out. So this thing will slide right in. Some cylinders, like a 63 millimeter, is as large as you can go on a GY6A case, which is what we're dealing with, the Chinese case. And it'll just slide right in. But here's the difference. See how thick the cylinder walls are there? And how thin they are on the new one? That's the difference. Like the cylinder wall thickness, if that was any thicker, it would not slide in. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's probably unreliable. Yeah, you would think that, but they are definitely not. Actually, I have a 232cc, and this cylinder walls, I feel like I can just break them with my fingers. So that's not a worry there. It's a drop-in kit. The cam is one of those things you can't tell a whole lot because there's the lobes and there's the duration. Here's our performance cam. Here's the factory cam. But the duration on this is what changes over the stock cam. The idea with the stock engine is to be an economy engine. So by changing the duration and the lobes on here, that'll increase the performance. So that's the cam end of things. And the head, this head's a big deal. So let me show you the stock. Here's the intake there. And here is the intake. Oh, hang on. Intake there. It's way bigger. This is 25 millimeter. Actually, this might even be 23. I didn't measure it. A lot of times they are. This is 28 millimeter. This guy. Not only that, you flip it over. The exhaust port is weak. This exhaust port is huge. Not only that, you've got tiny, skinny little exhaust studs which like to break. I think these are the 6 millimeter studs, and we're doing 8 millimeter studs to attach the exhaust. This is a better head by far. So this is the setup that we're running right there. I appreciate all you guys. Just so you know that. All my members, all my YouTube watchers, all my super chatters. Thank you guys. If it wasn't for you guys, I couldn't live this amazing lifestyle where I do what I love to do. Crazy to wake up every day and not dread your job. It's pretty cool. So, first thing we want to do is we need our dowel pins. Two of the dowel pins. It's pretty obvious where these go because there's a big opening there. So, pop that in there. Pop that in there. You got the longer part of the engine gasket going down. This is the base gasket. You got to be careful with your cam chain here. You don't mess this gasket up. Real nice and easy. Try not to get your gasket oily. So one thing that I did do off camera, these piston rings and end gaps are super important. Again, I have a whole video on how to do that, but in a nutshell, the most important thing, these end gaps don't line up. You don't want that ring end gap and that ring end gap lined up. That's no bueno. So I've got this one over here, and then these back ones, same thing. Nothing lines up. So we are good. And notice here, see this IN? That's intake. IN is intake. That goes up. And some of the pistons will have an arrow. Always they'll have an arrow towards the exhaust. Take a little oil. I use this to assemble. Just like that. Okay. And I also use this assembly oil a lot of times, but not for what I'm doing right now. Piston pin, get her all lubed up. Okay. Remember, intake up, IN up, and we've got our G clip there. So, you know, we want to start on the other side, just like that. Get just started a little ways like this, and slide her in. Being careful that you don't mess up these rings, the gaps. Slide the pin through. Which now we need our G clip. So here's our G clip. Looks just like that. See how I hold that? You see that? And it's a corkscrew motion towards the rounded edge. You definitely got to be careful that this sucker doesn't launch across the room too, because you're not gonna be happy because it only comes with 2, so you have to find it. Luckily for me, I'm a shop and I've got a bunch, but for Joe Schmo, you'd be looking for a while. Okay, I got that in. It's always super important to turn these to make sure they're in, because if they're not, it'll come out of there. So I want to double check all my ring end gaps, make sure they're not lined up. If they're lined up, you're gonna have low compression, you're gonna have a smoky engine. Here's our cylinder. And you want to grab some oil. Get her all lubed up because you're going to have a piston going in there. I'll spray some assembly oil in there too once we get to that point. We've got our dowel pins in back here. So I'm going to slide this sucker down. So very important to make sure it's all lubed up. And I'm going to slide this sucker down. This isn't easy. It's nice to have long nails when you're doing this. 171cc piston rings are in. I've got my chain here. Let me move this forward so you get a better angle here. And basically I turn this little guy to get it down. Okay, so we got our dowel pins back in here. I'm just gonna be very, very careful when I slide this into place, making sure that there's no binding. I already tried this off cam, so I know there's not. There we go. And then once you've got it down, you can grab your chain and you can just make sure, give it a little bit of a wiggle to make sure you're not caught and everything feels smooth, which it does. I'm just turning this over. And we are good. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end at top dead center. I'm gonna turn this piston. Oh, you wanna make sure that doesn't happen. You gotta keep the pressure down like that. And I'm gonna get this piston to top dead center. What I mean is the piston at the very, very top right there. Over here, there's a little T mark on the side of the magneto. And then you've got this little line here. See this little cutout? It's like kind of like a pointer. You gotta make sure that that's perfectly in line. So I pretty much am. That's where we want it to proceed. So this is what it looks like. It's right at top dead center. You wanna make sure this IN right up here. Scoot this forward. See it says IN? That's intake. Your exhaust is gonna go down here, so you wanna make sure your piston's on the right way, because see your valves here? They've got different sizes. If you flip it around, you're gonna have a big, big problem. Make sure your chain isn't bound up or anything like that. In the last episode, I showed you this copper gasket spray that I use right here. I always spray this just on head gaskets. It's not a necessity, but it's a bonus. So I'm going to first put my little timing chain guide through there. See the little notches? See the little guide part right here? And make sure that's facing up. So slide that sucker in, just like that. Perfect. Now we need our little dowels. If you notice, it's a little bit larger here where the dowels go. The dowels just center everything. You notice the head gasket here? See, it's got the little cutout? That's going right over the spot that we just dropped that guy in. So go ahead and do that. These gaskets are sharp like a razor blade. You gotta be careful. And I'm just gonna line it up with the dowels. This copper stuff's kind of tacky, a little bit tacky, even though it's been drying for like 24 hours. We got our big valve head right here. Super sweet. Good port job, 28mm intake, 28mm exhaust. And so we've got our dowels on, we've got our gasket on, we've got it at top dead center. We've got our little chain, not bound up or anything like that. So I'm gonna flip this guy around, get it lined up. And real nice and easy, it should slide on, no forcing it. Look just like that, nice and flush, nice and flush. So normally when you do bolts, you do like Loctite. In this scenario, we're not doing Loctite because we want to make sure that these head bolts are torqued down properly. So I got my little thing of oil. I just want to get a little oil over the threads. Slide those in. Same type of thing, just get the oil on the threads because that helps with torquing it down properly on the head. Now this is the only time I would do oil on any threads really. I'm gonna just use this to get this down, just slightly, but I'm not torquing it down with an impact at all. So here's our performance camshaft. It's got a different duration. We don't call these A8, A9, anything like that because I found there's a huge discrepancy on these things. So this is our performance cam that we have on our website, rollingwrenchjammer.com. So you guys can see that. See the line there? It's not lined up at all. Remember, we have top dead center set. So this takes a couple tries to get it perfectly right. Kind of close, probably about a tooth off. This is super crucial that you get this right. If you're doing this, pay attention to this part if you're gonna pay attention to anything at all, because very important that this lines up perfect. Otherwise your valves are gonna be hitting your piston. So there's our line. Can you see that? There's a line right here. Line right there, and it's perfectly lined up with the line on the head. That's exactly what we want. See the line right there? That line right there is lined up with the T mark on this magneto. Very important. So go back around. Everything's lined up good. This is our rocker assembly right here. You notice there's dowel pins in there. See, I can pull these out. Like that. Same thing, you've got some bigger holes for where the dowels go. So there's one, and there's one, it's always like a diagonally across. So got the dowels in. See this EX? EX, that's exhaust. So flip that around. I'm gonna make sure that's pointing down towards the exhaust. Remember the piston had IN for intake. So go ahead and, see how I've got this is kind of jammed up. We wanna make sure that, you're paying attention to these when you put them on. Get a little wiggle. There we go. That's good. And then we've got our, I keep all my bolts and stuff in these little guys, but I've got the valve cover here. You've got these washers here and nuts, washers and nuts. Start putting those on. Again, we're not using Loctite on these. It's already got oil on the threads a little bit. I should put a little bit more on the threads. So the reason why we do this is because it's very specific, the torque settings on these. And whenever you have dry, it's more pressure on the nut. So we need to make sure that it's nice and lubed up. Don't use Loctite on these, use oil. There is one thing though, see how I'm not getting any, basically to make long story short, we need to loosen up these rockers because I don't want these valves coming down while we're trying to adjust this. Grab this it's a 9mm. I've got a tool I use for that, but I'll grab that in just a sec while we're chatting, I'll grab it. It's easy to get these things loose. We wanna make sure there's no load on these valve springs until I'm done torquing it down, then we'll set the valve adjustment. So that's what I'm doing here. So we're gonna torque these down in a cross pattern to 16 foot-pounds on these guys. You definitely wanna do these in a cross pattern. Just going little by little. Don't torque one down more than the other, you know what I mean? Don't crank this down to 16 foot-pounds, and then this one, and then this one. It's always like a cross pattern. Just go a little bit at a time. I normally do these first, and then I do these little ones on the side last. Okay, there's one. You hear the torque wrench click. There's another one. Okay. Once I've got it, I go around the horn, just like that. Our valves are loose, good thing. Okay, now we've got these little guys, 9 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna get all the way through this top end before we do anything else here. And I wanna make sure that everything's lined up still. You gotta be careful because there's no timing chain tensioner in here. So we're gonna do that next to put our timing chain tensioner in. So there's this little gasket. And these timing chain tensioners have special length bolts, so make sure you keep that together. The number 3 impact screwdriver to get this loose because it is a pain in the son of a gun. So what I do is get a little screwdriver, and if you tighten it down, see how this is going in? It's like this. It'll get to a point where it locks. Normally locks. It's not wanting to lock. It's not really locking out, so I'm gonna have to hold this, unfortunately, or ask Tia to hold it. Tia, can you hold this? She's helping me here. So we're gonna do some Loctite, of course, on these. Turn it in such a way to get it started. I don't know what, this is kind of a tight view up here. Try to move that in such a way to get it lined up. There we go. See how floppy this chain is right there? Really floppy. Now Tia, go ahead and we'll let go. See how it kind of loosens out? And now the chain is tight. You're always gonna get, it's always gonna keep tightening. Chains get loose over time because they stretch. But now with this timing chain tensioner installed, it's always gonna be tight because the last thing you need is that chain to skip teeth. That would not be good because then your valves will hit your piston and all that. So I still wanna make sure that I've got the line here. Cam lobes are down, line, and top dead center here. Still good. Let me go back up to the top so I can finish what I was doing here. Now you have this little number 3 screwdriver. I don't really use, I guess I can do Loctite, but normally I just push that sucker in. This is basically just a cover so that you can get to your adjustment there. So let me grab a number 3 screwdriver. Just crank that sucker down. Doesn't need to be as tight as the way it was when I took it off. See this little unit here? This slides in there. That's a 9mm. This one's got the little square cut out for the valve. So I've got this valve adjuster tool. I can slide it over the top just like this. See, I can move that. This camera probably should go back just a little bit. There we go. And I can move this around. Meanwhile, the nut's not spinning because I've got the little holder. So the idea here, I know it's at top dead center, very, very important. I'm gonna check it one more time. Bring it to the T mark. There we go. Now, 0.004 inches in there. Now, I've got it semi-tight. You wanna get it to the point where you can pull this feeler gauge in and out, but you don't want the feeler gauge to be like stuck or slide in real easy. So now that I've got this, I'm just gonna hold this guy right at the top. Let's hold this with my fingers, and then we'll crank this sucker down without moving the finger screw. There we go, it's nice and tight. So double check. 0.004 goes in there. It's good. You want it to drag just a little bit, and do the same thing on the bottom. I can feel it when I go like this, in and out. And I could I've got the valve adjustment done. I've got the cam in. It was at top dead center. I'm leaving the spark plug out. And let's turn this engine over. You're looking for any type of binding at all. You don't want any binding. You could watch here. Feels good. See, if you have it wrong, your timing wrong, then you always want to do this by hand, because if you turn it enough and your timing's off, bam, your valve's going to hit your piston. And if you try to start it with a starter, your valve's going to bend. If you're doing it by hand, then you're good. So there we go. It feels really good. So now I'm going to go back to top dead center. Look over here. There's top dead center. Are my cam lobes down? Yes. And I know that because you hear that? Got a little play. So we're good. I'm going to recheck my valves. Feels good. You always want to recheck your valves. Perfect, perfect. This is a cool little valve cover because it eliminates the pair valve. Rolling wrench, valve cover. There's no pair valve. It just goes on like that. Just make sure your holes are lined up. Of course, biggest thing is make sure your gasket doesn't slide out of there. I'm gonna use Loctite on this actually. Here's a little trick of the trade. Bunch of Loctite on one. Grab your other bolts. Do a little swish. And they can swap spit with each other. Oh yeah. They're swapping spit. Okay, that goes on there. Notice when I have my impact, I'm not cranking it down to where it actually seats. I'm just using it to get it close. Okay. Again, you do it in a star pattern, of course. Our top end is complete. And I'm like religious about turning these over. So I did set up my iPad right here. Kind of cool. I can look at you now and then look over here, look at the comments. I missed a ton of comments, so I'll go back real quick. Got my first GY6 ruckus recently. The power's nasty, never going back to 50cc. Yeah, I hear that a lot. I mean, there is a huge difference between the GY6 150 and the 50cc for sure. Engine stand's a bomb. Yeah, heck yeah, I got that on the website. I think it's like 160 bucks. There's something super sweet coming to the DIY video library for my members. Get engine build step by step. Literally took forever to film this. It probably took me a full day to film and a little like half of the next day. And then I edited on a 2-hour plane ride. And then on a 2-hour plane ride back, I edited again, still not done. So a ton of effort goes into these videos when it's step by step like that, because it's like, I'm supposed to be the pro and when you buy a video from me, it's gonna be perfect. Not like a hobbyist. My name's on this. So I'm very particular on these videos that are paid, that go into the membership site. This YouTube stuff, like what I'm doing here, this is like fly by the pants stuff. So the good stuff is in the DIY video library. And then the $2.99 a month, that'll give you that's the all access or the backstage pass. But the backstage pass, that's just like the live that you're watching right now will go private after this. And then you can watch all these lives. We do a live. We try to do a live once a week. You get access to that. Plus you're helping support the channel. By the way, 70,000 subscribers yesterday. I hit that goal. Super proud of that. But to be honest with you, that's not my goal. Like, subscribers are cool, it's a huge accomplishment, but my goal is people watching these videos. Watch time is my thing. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is not a waste of time. It's like I'm putting effort in that are helping, giving you guys the stuff that you want to see. I like the way you build your bikes. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Roy Walls, I haven't seen you in here for a bit. How you doing, man? Just changing your magneto or stator do much? So the only reason why you would change your magneto or stator is for the charging system or if you had a problem. Some people think that that's a performance upgrade. It has nothing to do with the way their motor performs. It's gonna be the way that charges. So like on this guy, we just did a 12-pole stator, and a lot of guys are running 8 poles or 11 poles. 12 poles is gonna be like a DC. If you're running a DC CDI, which we do on our kits, and basically that's going to be for your charging system. It's going to pump the charging system up to the max on a 12 pole. You sell much for the 150cc ice spare? The only thing we really sell for the ice spare is all the performance mods, like the 150cc engine pieces, like CDI boxes, 171cc kits, things like that. Got all that on there. So watch the video that tells you exactly what engine you have. If you have a stamp on the side that says QMJ 157, that would be a GY6 150cc. So anything with a QMJ 157, go to our website. Go into that section, you'll be good. What was the piston and head? That's our rolling wrench kit and caboodle. Comes with the 61mm cylinder, the head, big valve head, and then we've got our carburetor. Let me grab that really quick. This is our this is part of the kit and caboodle here, the rolling wrench carburetor, and it's 28mm. It comes with the pod filter, carb, and intake. You could choose your. If you don't want a 28, some people run 30s, we can do 30s as well. All right, so I'm about to show you guys the CVT stuff and the transmission stuff. We're gonna do a CVT kit, case brace. I totally fishtail abruptly ended that one. Episode 3 is coming though. If you can't wait and you're like, I want to freaking see the rest of this series, I have a full unedited version of it. That was the live that I told you I cut down. Link in the description. You have to become a member to do it. Not only did you get to see it, you're actually giving back to the channel. So you can do that if you want. Otherwise, make sure you hit the little blue bell and the subscribe button and you get notified when episode 3 comes out. I'll see you in the next video. Appreciate you guys.